Everyone in my family knew my boyfriend got my best friend pregnant except me, and when my mom called me selfish for asking her to stay with me instead of going to celebrate the birth, I packed my bags and disappeared. 15 years later they found me and expected me to forgive them. I was 19 when I left. Back then, I thought my life was going exactly how it should. I had Gerald, my boyfriend of almost 4 years. I had Jen, my best friend since we were babies. Our families had this whole thing going where they spent every holiday together, every birthday, every major event. My parents were best friends with Gerald's parents and Jen's parents. My older brother was dating Gerald's sister. The whole setup felt like something out of a movie, the kind where everyone ends up related somehow. Gerald was 21 and in his third year at college when everything happened. I was finishing my last year of high school. We talked about getting married after he graduated. My parents loved him. They told me all the time how lucky I was to have found someone so perfect. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do after school, but I knew I wanted to be with Gerald. The future felt simple and clear. Jan and I had always been close, but that year was different. Right when school started, she seemed off. She stopped calling me as much. When we hung out, she looked like she was somewhere else. I kept asking what was wrong, but she said it was nothing. I pushed harder because that's what best friends do. Finally, she told me she was pregnant. I remember sitting in her room when she said it. My first thought was confusion because she and her boyfriend had broken up months earlier. I asked who the father was. She started crying and said it was complicated. She wouldn't tell me his name, but she made it sound like it was her ex. I figured he was being a jerk about the whole thing, so I dropped it. She needed support, not an interrogation. The next 9 months were intense. I went with her when she told her parents. They looked disappointed but said they would help her. They kept asking about the father, but she refused to say anything. I promised her I wouldn't push her about it either. I went to every doctor's appointment. I held her hand during ultrasounds. When kids at school said things, I shut them down. I helped her paint the nursery. I threw her a baby shower. We picked out clothes together. We even took parenting classes on weekends. She asked me to be in the delivery room with her, and I said yes without hesitation. We spent hours talking about baby names. She wanted something classic, and I suggested Amber. She loved it. We decided together that if it was a girl, Amber would be perfect. I bought the first outfit with that name embroidered on it. 2 weeks before her due date, I ran into her ex-boyfriend at the grocery store. His name was Tom. I had been holding everything in for months, all the frustration about how Jen was going through this alone. When I saw him, something snapped. I walked right up to him and told him he was a coward for abandoning Jen. I called him every name I could think of. He looked completely lost. He said he had no idea what I was talking about. He said they had broken up over a year ago and hadn't been together since. He said there was no way he could be the father. I felt stupid for going off on him. I apologized. Then he got this look on his face and said maybe I should ask Gerald if he knew anything about it. I didn't think much of it. Gerald and Jen had been friends forever. The comment seemed random and mean. I went home and told my younger brother about it while we were making dinner. He was 16 then. He always had something to say about everything, but when I mentioned what Tom said about Gerald, he went quiet. He mumbled something and left the room. Later that night, I went downstairs to get water. I heard my brother talking to our mom in the kitchen. His voice was loud, almost yelling. He was telling her about my run-in with Tom. Then he said he was tired of hiding the truth from me. He said Gerald was the father of Jen's baby. I walked into the kitchen. My mom's face went white. My brother started crying. I asked them to explain. My mom tried to say it wasn't what I thought, but my brother cut her off. He told me everything. Gerald and Jen had gone to a party at the end of summer. They got drunk. They slept together. When Jen found out she was pregnant, she told Gerald. They were both scared to tell me. Jen told her parents during her first trimester. Her parents told Gerald's parents. Gerald's parents told my parents. By the time she was halfway through the pregnancy, everyone knew. My siblings, Gerald's siblings, Jen's siblings. Everyone except me. I threw up. I stayed in my room for 3 days. My parents kept coming in, saying they didn't tell me because they didn't want to hurt me. They said they thought it would be better if I didn't know. Gerald called and texted constantly. Jen did too. I didn't respond to any of them. Then Gerald's mom showed up at the house. My mom let her into my room. She sat on my bed and told me I needed to forgive them. She said Jen needed me, especially now. She said the baby needed me. I stared at the wall and said nothing. She eventually left. 2 weeks after I found out, Jen went into labor. My mom told me it was happening. She said there were complications, that Jen was losing blood, that they had to do an emergency C-section. Gerald was there with her. I sat in my room. I had been planning to be there for months. I had imagined holding the baby right after she was born. Now I was alone in my house while everyone else was at the hospital. My older brother left to be there with his girlfriend. My parents stayed home with me at first. I didn't say much. I just wanted my mom to sit with me. Then Jen's mom called. My mom answered and said they were going to the hospital. I asked her to stay. I told her I needed her too. She looked at me and said I was being selfish. She said Jen's parents needed support. Then she and my dad left. I sat in the living room by myself. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there. Then my phone buzzed. It was a text from my brother. He said Jen had a healthy baby girl. They named her Amber. He sent a picture. Another text came a minute later. He said my parents and his girlfriend were going to a bar with Jen's parents and Gerald's parents to celebrate. I went upstairs and packed a bag. I didn't take much, just clothes and some money I had saved from my part-time job. I left a note that said I needed space. Then I walked to the train station. I ended up in Denver. I found a cheap place to stay and got a job at a coffee shop. My mom called and left voicemails saying they had reported me missing. But I was 19, so the police didn't do anything. I didn't call back. I met Rob a few months later. He worked at the same coffee shop. He had left his family too, for different reasons. We became friends. He helped me figure out how to pay bills and finish my last few high school credits online. I moved into an apartment with him and two of his friends. He listened when I needed to talk, which was more than I could afford from anyone else. We started dating after a year. When he turned 25, he got some money from his grandfather's estate. He wanted to move to Chicago and start a business. He asked me to come with him. I said yes. We got married right after my 22nd birthday at a courthouse. It wasn't planned. We just decided one day that we wanted to. Rob paid for me to go to college. I worked part-time and then joined his company after I graduated. We had our first son when I was 29. Our second son came 2 years later. I didn't talk to my family for 15 years. I changed my number. I didn't use social media. I built a completely different life. Last year, I got an email from my niece. Her name is Lily. She's my brother's daughter. She was 15. She said she found my email through some old family documents. She didn't know the full story of why I left. She just knew I had been gone for a long time. We started emailing back and forth. She told me about school, about her hobbies. It felt safe because she didn't push me for explanations. Through her, I learned I had 12 nieces and nephews. Gerald and Jen got married 4 years after I left. They had 2 more sons after Amber. My parents were still close with their parents. Everyone still spent holidays together. In January, Lily sent me a different kind of email. She said my parents were struggling financially. My brothers had lost their jobs during the pandemic. The family was having trouble keeping up with the mortgage. I felt something shift. I had money. Rob's business had done well. I talked to him about it, and we decided to help my parents with their house. We flew back to visit a week ago. It was the first time I had seen my parents in 15 years. My mom cried when she opened the door. My dad just stood there. We sat in the living room, and they thanked us for helping with the house. I told them I wasn't doing it to fix our relationship. I was doing it because they were still my parents. We agreed to keep things cordial. Then my mom started talking about Jen and Gerald. She said I should sit down with them and talk things out. She said it had been long enough. She said we could all be a family again. I told her no. I said I was willing to rebuild something with my parents and siblings, but I wanted nothing to do with Jen or Gerald. She called me selfish. 2 days later, Gerald's mom called me. I don't know how she got my number. She said my return was causing problems. She said I needed to talk to Gerald and Jen to smooth things over. I hung up. I called my mom. She admitted she gave Gerald's mom my number. She said she was trying to heal the family. I told her she was choosing them over me again. She started crying and yelling that I was selfish, that all she wanted was her family back together. I'm sitting in my hotel room now. Rob is with the kids in the next room. I keep thinking about that night 15 years ago when my mom called me selfish for asking her to stay. I thought maybe time had changed things. Maybe it hasn't. I'm going back to Chicago tomorrow. I don't know if I'll talk to my parents again after this. Update 1: I didn't expect to post an update, but things have happened since I got back from that trip. I blocked my mom's number before I left. I thought that would be the end of it. It wasn't. My younger brother reached out a few weeks after I got home. His name is Sam. He was the one who told me the truth 15 years ago. We met for coffee when I was back in town for work. He told me his life had been difficult after I left. My mom blamed him for everything. She told him it was his fault I ran away. She made his teenage years miserable. He moved out the day he turned 20 and hadn't spoken to her in years. We started talking regularly after that. He lives in Seattle now with his partner. We call each other a few times a week. He told me about my other siblings too. My older brother and I have exchanged some emails, but we're not close. His wife is Gerald's sister, so things are complicated. My younger sister and I have a decent relationship. She stayed out of the drama as much as she could. But my mom didn't stop. Sam told me she was calling him constantly, asking about me, asking for my new number. I had changed it again after the trip. She started calling Rob's business line. She left messages saying she needed to talk to me about something important. Rob blocked the number. Then I got pregnant again. Our third child. A daughter. We didn't announce it publicly, but somehow my mom found out. I think one of my siblings mentioned it. The calls started coming to Rob's business line again, dozens a day. She left voicemails that went from begging to angry to desperate. She said she deserved to know her granddaughter. She said I was cruel for keeping her away. She said her health was getting worse because of the stress I was causing. Rob wanted to change the business number, but that would have been a huge hassle with clients. Instead, he called my dad. It was the first time Rob had spoken to him since we visited. He told my dad to get my mom under control or he would file for harassment. My dad called me the next day. We talked for 2 hours. It was the longest conversation we'd had in 17 years. I told him everything I had been holding in. I told him about that night when I asked my mom to stay and she called me selfish. I told him about sitting alone in the living room while everyone celebrated the baby at a bar. I told him how I felt when I found out everyone had known for months and no one told me. He listened. He didn't make excuses. He said he would handle it. The calls from my mom stopped. 2 months later, my dad called again. He said he had filed for divorce. He said he had spent years going along with my mom's decisions because it was easier than fighting. He said he realized too late that he had lost me because of it. He said he couldn't do it anymore. My mom called me after the divorce was filed. I didn't answer, but she left a voicemail. She was crying, saying she didn't understand why this was happening. She said she just wanted her family back. She said I had ruined everything. I deleted it and blocked that number too. Sam told me she was calling everyone in the family, trying to get people on her side. Most of them didn't want to be involved. She apparently told Jen's mom that I was tearing the family apart. Jen's mom told her she needed to let it go. My mom lost friends over it. She started seeing a doctor for anxiety. I felt nothing when Sam told me that. In August, my older brother's wife gave a letter to Rob when he was back in town for work. She said it was from Jen. She asked him to give it to me. Rob brought it home and handed it to me. I put it in a drawer. I didn't open it. I still haven't. My dad and I talk once a week now. He's living in an apartment downtown. He seems lighter, if that makes sense. He told me things about my mom's past that explained some of her behavior. Not that it excused it, but it gave context. I'm not ready to get into all of that, but it helped me understand why she is the way she is. Sam also told me something interesting. Gerald and Jen separated. He didn't have details, just that Gerald had moved out of their house and was staying with his parents. My older brother's wife confirmed it when Rob saw her. She said Gerald had asked for my number, but her husband refused to give it to him. That's when Jen wrote the letter. I still haven't read it. I don't know if I will. My daughter was born last month. Rob's parents came to visit. My dad came too. He met his granddaughter. He held her and cried. It felt like something had shifted, but not in a way that fixed everything. Just in a way that made things a little less broken. My mom sent flowers to the hospital. I left them in the waiting room. Update 2. I didn't plan to write another update, but I met with Jen 3 weeks ago. I need to write it down to make sense of it. After the last update, things were quiet for a while. My dad visited a few times. Sam and I kept talking. My older brother and I exchanged emails here and there. My mom stopped trying to contact me, as far as I knew. I focused on my daughter and my sons and my work. I thought that chapter was closed. Then Jen sent me an email. She said she was divorcing Gerald. She said she needed to talk to me. She said she knew she had no right to ask, but she didn't know who else to reach out to. She said Gerald had cheated on her. With her best friend. Someone she had become close to after I left. I read the email 3 times. There was something almost funny about it, in a dark way. The same thing she did to me, someone did to her. I didn't respond right away. I talked to Rob. He said it was my choice, but he thought I might regret it if I didn't hear her out. Not for her sake, but for mine. I emailed her back. I said I would meet her once. I picked a coffee shop in a neutral part of town, far from where we grew up. I told her I would give her an hour. She was already there when I arrived. I almost didn't recognize her. She looked tired. Her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail. She had dark circles under her eyes. She looked smaller somehow, like she had shrunk into herself. We sat down. She thanked me for coming. She said she didn't expect me to forgive her, but she needed to apologize. She started crying almost immediately. She said she had been a coward. She said she convinced herself that what she and Gerald had was real, that it was worth the betrayal. She said she spent years trying to justify it. She said she built her entire life on a lie. I didn't say anything at first. I just let her talk. She told me about her marriage to Gerald. How it was good at first, but then it started to feel hollow. How they fought constantly. How she felt trapped. How she thought maybe it was karma. She said when she found out Gerald was cheating, she called him out. He told her she had no right to be angry after what she did to me. That shut her up. Then she told me the worst part. My mom had completely cut her off after she found out about the cheating. The woman who had defended Jen and Gerald for 15 years, who had called me selfish for not forgiving them, who had spent years trying to force a reconciliation, had turned her back on Jen the moment Jen was the one who got hurt. Jen said my mom told her she was disappointed in her, that she expected better. The irony was so thick I almost laughed. I finally spoke. I told her I wasn't there to forgive her. I said I didn't care about her marriage or her divorce or her guilt. I said I wanted her to understand what she did to me. So I told her everything. I told her about that night when I found out. How my mom left me alone to go celebrate the birth of the baby I had helped prepare for. How my own family chose her over me. How I left because I had no one. How I built a life from nothing because everyone I trusted had lied to me. How I met Rob and how he became the only person I could rely on. How I had 3 kids now and how I made sure they would never feel the way I felt that night. She cried through all of it. When I finished, she said she didn't know. She said she didn't know my mom had left me that night. She said she thought I had just decided not to come to the hospital. She said no one told her I had been alone. I told her that was the problem. No one thought about me. Everyone was too busy protecting her and Gerald. I said she made her choice 15 years ago, and I made mine. I said I didn't hate her, but I didn't want her in my life either. We sat in silence for a few minutes. Then I stood up and told her I hoped she figured things out. I left. I drove home and made dinner for my family. Rob asked how it went. I told him it went exactly how it needed to. Jen hasn't contacted me since. Gerald called a few days later. He left a voicemail saying he wanted to talk. He said he had things to explain. I deleted it. He called again a week after that. I blocked the number. My mom, from what Sam tells me, is not doing well. The divorce is finalized. She's living alone in a small apartment. She still calls Sam sometimes, asking about me. He doesn't tell her anything. She apparently broke down at a family gathering last month, crying about how she lost everyone. My older brother's wife told Sam that people were uncomfortable. No one knows what to say to her anymore. I don't feel good about any of it. I don't feel bad either. I just feel done. Update 3. This will be my last update. I need to close this chapter for good. A few weeks ago, my dad came to visit. He's been doing better since the divorce. He started going to a gym, reconnected with some old friends, even went on a few dates. He seemed more like himself than I remembered. We took the kids to a park, and afterward, we sat on my porch while they played in the yard. He told me more about my mom. He said she had a difficult childhood. Her parents were strict and cold. She grew up thinking love meant keeping everyone together at any cost. He said she couldn't handle conflict, so she buried it. He said when I left, it broke something in her, but instead of accepting responsibility, she blamed everyone else. First Sam, then me, then the situation itself. He said he enabled her for years because he didn't want to fight. He said he was sorry. I told him I appreciated that. I also told him I wasn't interested in rebuilding anything with my mom. He nodded and said he understood. He said he wouldn't push me. The week after that, I finally opened Jen's letter. I don't know why I picked that day. Maybe I was just ready. The letter was long. It said a lot of the same things she told me at the coffee shop. She apologized. She said she regretted everything. She said she wished she could go back and make different choices. She said she understood if I never wanted to speak to her again. At the end, she wrote that she hoped I was happy. She said I deserved it. I threw the letter away after I read it. I didn't respond. Gerald stopped trying to contact me after the second call. My older brother told me Gerald moved to another state for work. He said Gerald and Jen's divorce was finalized last month. Jen has custody of the kids most of the time. My older brother said Gerald sees them every other weekend. He didn't offer more details, and I didn't ask. My mom sent me a card for my birthday last week. It had a generic message about love and family. She didn't sign it, but I recognized her handwriting. I put it in the recycling bin. Sam and I are still close. We're planning a trip with our families next year. My dad will probably come too. My older brother and I are fine. We don't talk much, but there's no tension. My younger sister and I exchange texts every few weeks. It's not a big, happy family, but it's something. Rob and I celebrated our 14th wedding anniversary last month. The kids are doing great. Our daughter just started walking. Our oldest son is in 2nd grade. Our middle son is in preschool. We have a routine. We have a life that works. That's enough. I don't think about Gerald or Jen much anymore. When I do, it's brief. A passing thought. I don't wonder what they're doing. I don't care. The betrayal doesn't sting the way it used to. It's just a thing that happened. I moved past it a long time ago. People have asked me if I regret leaving. I don't. Leaving was the only choice I had. Staying would have destroyed me. I built something better on my own terms. I have people in my life now who wouldn't choose someone else over me. That's all I ever wanted. This is the last time I'll write about this. I'm putting it down and moving forward. There's nothing left to say. Now let's move to the next story. Story 2. My parent had a ridiculous demand from me. Postpone your wedding for 10 years, all because my 30-year-old brother was in a delicate phase. I got married in secret and all hell broke loose. I never thought I'd be posting my family drama on Reddit, but here I am. I'm a 26-year-old female who's been working as an accountant at a respectable firm for the past 4 years. My life has been relatively stable. I graduated with my accounting degree, landed a good job, and have been steadily working my way up in the company. Numbers make sense to me, and I enjoy the structured environment of my workplace. I've been with my fiancé Jeremy for 6 years now. We met during our junior year of college when we were both studying late in the library. He was working on an engineering project, and I was finishing an accounting assignment. We struck up a conversation about how the vending machine had eaten his dollar, and somehow that turned into a 3-hour chat. Jeremy has his master's in engineering and works for a construction company that specializes in sustainable building practices. He's patient, logical, and has always been my rock. Jeremy proposed 2 years ago during a weekend trip to a lakeside cabin. We've been planning our spring wedding for months now, booking vendors and finding the perfect venue. Everything was going smoothly until last week when my parents asked me to come over for dinner. For context, I should explain my family dynamics. My brother Harry is 30 years old and has always been my parents' favorite child. Growing up, Harry was labeled a creative genius with unlimited potential, while I was just the responsible one. Harry started a tech company right after college that failed within 8 months. Then he tried to become a professional photographer, which lasted about a year before he moved back home. For the past several years, he's been living with my parents, occasionally taking odd jobs while working on various big plans that never materialize. Despite Harry's track record, my parents still treat him like he's destined for greatness. When I got my promotion last year, my mom simply said, "That's nice, dear," before immediately changing the subject to Harry's new idea for a podcast that was going to revolutionize online content. When Harry failed to pay back the $5,000 my parents loaned him for camera equipment, they brushed it off as an investment in his future. Meanwhile, they reminded me for years about the $800 they helped me with for textbooks in college, which I paid back within 6 months. Jeremy has always been polite to my family, though I could tell from the beginning that he noticed the favoritism. During family gatherings, he would shoot me a knowing look whenever my parents would go on about Harry's latest scheme while barely asking about my work or our relationship. Still, Jeremy made an effort, bringing thoughtful gifts to my parents and engaging Harry in conversation about his interests. Last Tuesday, my parents asked me to come to their house for dinner. When I arrived, they were sitting stiffly in the living room, the formal one that's only used for important discussions or when my dad's boss comes over. My mom gestured for me to sit down on the sofa across from them. That's when they dropped their bombshell request. They wanted me to postpone my wedding for 8 to 10 years. I thought they were joking at first. But my father's stern expression made it clear this wasn't a prank. He explained that Harry was going through a delicate phase and needed to find stability before I got married. According to my parents, there needed to be a natural family order, and since Harry was older, he should get married first. My mother added that Harry had recently started dating a woman named Riley, and they believed she might be the one for him. They explained that Harry was planning something big career-wise in the next few years, though they were frustratingly vague about what exactly these plans entailed. Apparently, my wedding would somehow interfere with Harry's progress. I sat there, staring at them, waiting for one of them to crack a smile or say they were testing me. But they continued with complete seriousness, suggesting that Jeremy and I could have a long engagement, and that postponing for nearly a decade wasn't a big deal since we were already committed to each other. When I finally found my voice, I asked them to explain how my wedding would impact Harry's life in any way. My father claimed that seeing his younger sister get married before him would damage Harry's self-esteem and derail his progress. My mother nodded along, adding that Harry had mentioned feeling anxious about my upcoming wedding. I pointed out that Jeremy and I had been together for 6 years, lived together for 3, and had been engaged for 2. We'd already postponed our wedding once because of COVID. I reminded them that Harry had only been dating Riley for 3 months. My parents weren't swayed. My mother's voice took on that guilt-inducing tone she's perfected over the years. She mentioned how much they'd sacrificed for my education and reminded me about my responsibilities to the family. My father brought up the family vacation they'd taken me on during my sophomore year of college, as if that somehow obligated me to put my life on hold for a decade. As the conversation continued, their arguments became more absurd. They suggested I was being selfish for not considering Harry's feelings. My father actually said, "Your wedding is just one day, but Harry's potential breakthrough could change all our lives." My mother added that I already had stability with Jeremy, so waiting wouldn't hurt me, but Harry needed this win. After nearly 2 hours of this nonsense, I left their house without agreeing to anything. I drove home in a daze, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. The streetlights blurred through my windshield as I tried to make sense of what had just happened. When I got home and told Jeremy about my parents' request, he nearly spilled his coffee. After confirming multiple times that I wasn't exaggerating or misunderstanding what they'd said, he put down his mug and paced around our kitchen. Jeremy has always been careful about criticizing my family, but that night, he didn't hold back. He couldn't believe they would ask us to put our lives on hold for Harry's nebulous potential. Jeremy and I talked until well after midnight. We discussed every angle of the situation, including the possibility of talking to my parents again to make them see reason. But the more we talked, the more we realized that my parents weren't going to change their minds. They had always prioritized Harry, and this was just the most extreme example. That night, we made a decision. We weren't going to postpone our wedding, and we weren't going to fight with my parents about it either. Instead, we would get married anyway, just not in the way we had planned. Over the next few days, Jeremy and I canceled our original wedding plans and began organizing a smaller, secret ceremony. We found a beautiful garden venue with a last-minute opening for the following month. We created a tight guest list: Jeremy's parents and sister, our closest friends, and my aunt, the only family member who had consistently treated me as an equal to Harry. Planning the secret wedding was surprisingly liberating. Without my parents' input, we were free to choose exactly what we wanted. No arguments about the guest list, no pressure to invite distant relatives I barely knew, no debates about the menu or music. Just the things that mattered to us. Jeremy's parents were completely supportive. When we explained the situation, his mother hugged me for a long time while his father shook his head in disbelief at my parents' request. They offered to help with the costs we lost from canceling our original plans and insisted on hosting a dinner after the ceremony. The day of our wedding arrived with perfect weather. The garden was full of blooming flowers, and the small pavilion had been decorated simply with white lights and greenery. Jeremy's sister had arranged for a string quartet, a surprise gift that brought tears to my eyes when I heard the first notes as I walked down the aisle. During our vows, I looked around at the small group of people who had gathered to support us. Each person there had chosen to be present, knowing the circumstances. There was no family drama, no tensions, no comparing me to Harry. Just genuine happiness for Jeremy and me. After the ceremony, we had dinner at Jeremy's parents' house. They had transformed their backyard with tables, lights, and flowers. We ate, drank, and celebrated with people who cared about our happiness. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel the shadow of Harry's potential hanging over me. 2 days after the wedding, one of our friends posted photos on social media. I had been planning to tell my parents about the wedding in person, but before I could arrange a meeting, my phone exploded with notifications. My mother called 14 times in a row. My father sent a series of increasingly angry text messages. Even Harry called, which was rare since he usually communicated through our parents. My mother's voicemails started with shock and quickly escalated to accusations of betrayal. She claimed I had humiliated the family and ruined Harry's chances with Riley by being so selfish. My father's texts accused me of being ungrateful for everything they had done for me. Harry sent a rambling message about how I had always been jealous of him and was trying to sabotage his happiness. I didn't respond to any of them that day. Jeremy and I had taken a long weekend at a coastal bed and breakfast as a mini honeymoon, and I refused to let my family's reaction spoil our time together. Instead, I turned off my phone and focused on enjoying my first days as Jeremy's wife. The next morning, I received an unexpected call from my aunt. She congratulated us on the wedding and then hesitantly told me something she thought I should know. According to her, Harry had been planning to propose to Riley, despite having only dated her for 3 months. My parents had apparently been encouraging this, seeing Riley as a stabilizing influence on Harry. My aunt had heard from a friend who worked with Riley that she had been expressing doubts about the relationship, feeling that Harry was too dependent and directionless. This revelation made my parents' request even more absurd. They wanted me to put my life on hold for up to a decade so that Harry could rush into marriage with someone who was already having second thoughts about their relationship. When we returned from our weekend away, I turned my phone back on to find more messages, including one from Riley asking to meet for coffee. Curious about her perspective, I agreed to meet her the following day at a cafe halfway between our workplaces. Update 1. 2 weeks later, the meeting with Riley revealed more than I expected. She arrived at the cafe looking exhausted, with dark circles under her eyes and her hair hastily pulled back. After brief congratulations on my marriage, she launched into the real reason she wanted to meet. Riley explained that she and Harry had been dating for just over 3 months when my parents invited her to dinner and started making comments about future grandchildren and finally having a daughter-in-law. She was caught off guard by their intensity, especially since she and Harry were still in the early stages of dating. What surprised me most was Riley's description of my parents' behavior toward Harry. She said they treated him like he was still in college, doing his laundry and making excuses when he forgot commitments. According to Riley, Harry rarely cooked for himself and had no consistent schedule. He talked constantly about his big plans but spent most days playing video games or meeting with friends to discuss business ideas that never progressed beyond conversations. Riley admitted she had started dating Harry because he was charming and creative, but she quickly realized he had no practical skills or ambition beyond vague dreams. She had been trying to encourage him to apply for steady jobs, but my parents undermined her efforts by telling Harry he was too special for ordinary work and should hold out for something that matched his potential. The most shocking part came when Riley revealed that Harry had indeed been planning to propose, with a ring my parents had helped him select and partially paid for. Riley had found the ring in Harry's drawer a week before our wedding and confronted him about it. She told him she wasn't ready for marriage after just 3 months of dating, especially given his unstable situation. According to Riley, this triggered a meltdown from Harry. He called my parents, who then called Riley directly and tried to convince her that she was making a mistake. My mother suggested that Riley was being overly cautious and should grab the opportunity to marry someone with Harry's exceptional qualities. My father implied that Riley might not find someone better than Harry and shouldn't throw away her chance at happiness. Riley stood her ground, telling my parents it was inappropriate for them to pressure her about her relationship with Harry. This apparently led to a tense situation where my parents suggested Riley was leading Harry on and wasting his time if she wasn't committed to marriage. After that disastrous interaction, Riley had been seriously reconsidering the relationship. She explained that meeting me for coffee was partly to satisfy her curiosity about my family dynamics and partly to warn me about what had been happening. Before we parted, Riley mentioned that she was planning to break up with Harry that weekend. She had already found her own apartment and was preparing to move out of her current place, which was too close to my parents' house for comfort. I left that coffee meeting with my head spinning. The picture Riley painted of my parents' involvement in her relationship with Harry was disturbing. It seemed they were so determined to see Harry settled that they were willing to pressure a woman he'd known for just a few months into marrying him. That evening, I wrote a lengthy email to my parents. I didn't reveal that I had met with Riley, but I expressed my concerns about their treatment of Harry and their unreasonable request regarding my wedding. I suggested that their constant coddling and inflated praise might be preventing Harry from developing the skills and resilience he needed to succeed. I proposed family therapy as a way to address these patterns and build healthier relationships. I ended by saying I loved them but needed space to process everything that had happened. After sending the email, I blocked my parents' numbers for 48 hours. I needed time to think without their immediate reactions influencing me. Jeremy supported this decision, suggesting that some distance might help everyone gain perspective. During those 2 days of silence, I learned through mutual friends that Riley had indeed broken up with Harry. Apparently, he had not taken it well. My cousin reported that Harry had moved back to my parents' house and was refusing to leave his old bedroom. When I unblocked my parents' numbers, there were no messages waiting. The silence was unusual and concerning. I decided to call my aunt, who had always been a more balanced source of family information. My aunt informed me that my parents were in crisis mode dealing with Harry, who had taken the breakup extremely hard. According to her, Harry had been telling anyone who would listen that his life was falling apart because of me, claiming that my secret wedding had somehow caused Riley to reevaluate their relationship. This narrative was absurd, given what Riley had told me, but it fit the pattern of Harry avoiding responsibility and my parents enabling him. My aunt mentioned that my parents were so focused on Harry that they probably hadn't even processed my email yet. A week passed with no contact from my parents. Then, late one Friday night, there was a pounding on our apartment door. Jeremy opened it to find Harry, clearly intoxicated and belligerent. He pushed past Jeremy and started shouting at me, blaming me for Riley leaving him. He claimed that our wedding had stolen his thunder and made Riley question their relationship timeline. Jeremy stepped between us and firmly told Harry he needed to leave. Harry refused, becoming more agitated and knocking a lamp off the side table. When he took a step toward me, Jeremy physically blocked him and stated that if Harry didn't leave immediately, he would call the police. Harry eventually stormed out, but not before shouting that our parents were right about me being selfish and that I had ruined his life. The encounter left me shaking. Jeremy immediately checked to make sure all the doors and windows were locked, and we discussed whether we should file a police report. In the end, we decided to document the incident but not involve the authorities yet. The next morning, I received a text from my father asking if we could meet as a family to clear the air. I agreed but insisted the meeting take place at a neutral location, a private room at a local restaurant, rather than at my parents' house where Harry would have home field advantage. I also made it clear that Jeremy would be accompanying me and that if Harry showed any signs of the aggressive behavior he'd displayed at our apartment, we would leave immediately. My father agreed to these terms and scheduled the meeting for Sunday afternoon. As the meeting approached, Jeremy and I discussed our strategy. We agreed that we would remain calm but firm, focusing on specific behaviors rather than general accusations. Jeremy promised to support me but also pledged to intervene if the conversation became too heated or manipulative. I spent Saturday night tossing and turning, rehearsing what I wanted to say and anticipating my family's responses. Despite everything, these were still my parents, and part of me hoped they would finally hear me and recognize the dysfunctional patterns that had defined our family for so long. Update 2. 1 month later the family meeting at the restaurant started tense and only got worse. My parents arrived first, sitting close together on one side of the table. Harry showed up 10 minutes late, refusing to look at me or Jeremy as he slumped into his chair. My father began by saying he hoped we could have a civilized conversation about recent events. My mother added that she was hurt by my secretive behavior and felt I had deliberately excluded them from one of the most important days of my life. I took a deep breath and explained my perspective. I told them that their request to postpone my wedding for nearly a decade was unreasonable and hurtful. I pointed out that they had consistently prioritized Harry's feelings and potential over my actual accomplishments and happiness. Harry interrupted, claiming I was twisting the situation to make myself look good. He insisted that my parents had only been looking out for his well-being during a difficult time. When I asked what exactly this difficult time entailed, neither Harry nor my parents could provide a concrete answer beyond vague references to his career aspirations and the breakup with Riley, which had occurred after their request that I postpone my wedding. As the conversation continued, my mother became increasingly emotional. She admitted that she and my father had always been more concerned about Harry because they believed I was naturally competent while Harry needed extra support. According to her, they never meant to make me feel less valued, they just thought I didn't need their attention as much as Harry did. My father was more defensive, insisting that their request had been reasonable given the family circumstances. When Jeremy calmly asked what specific circumstances justified asking us to delay our wedding for nearly a decade, my father couldn't provide a clear answer. Instead, he changed the subject to Harry's recent struggles with Riley. That's when I decided to reveal what Riley had told me. I explained that she had reached out after our wedding and shared her concerns about Harry's lack of independence and my parents' inappropriate involvement in their relationship. I detailed how she had found the engagement ring and felt pressured by all three of them to rush into marriage despite her reservations. This revelation caused an uproar. Harry accused me of lying, while my mother became defensive about their interactions with Riley. My father tried to justify their behavior by claiming they were just trying to support Harry's relationship. Through the chaos, I maintained my position. I explained that I understood they loved Harry and wanted to see him happy, but their methods were harmful. By constantly shielding him from consequences and inflating his sense of exceptionalism, they were preventing him from developing the skills he needed to actually succeed. Meanwhile, they were treating me as an afterthought, assuming I didn't need their support or recognition because I was managing on my own. The turning point came when my father admitted that Harry had been struggling with depression for several years. Apparently, each failed venture had taken a toll on his self-esteem, and my parents had been trying to boost his confidence by emphasizing his potential. They genuinely believed that seeing his younger sister get married before him would worsen his mental state. While I sympathized with Harry's struggles, I pointed out that managing his mental health by manipulating family members wasn't a sustainable solution. I suggested again that therapy, both individual for Harry and family therapy for all of us, would be more beneficial than asking me to put my life on hold. By the end of the 3-hour meeting, we had reached an uneasy truce. My parents acknowledged that their request had been unfair, though they stopped short of a full apology. Harry remained largely silent after the initial outbursts, staring at the table and occasionally checking his phone. As we were preparing to leave, my mother asked if Jeremy and I would consider having a family celebration of our marriage once things had calmed down. I said I would think about it but made no promises. After the meeting, Jeremy and I went home exhausted. We agreed that while some truths had come to light, fundamental patterns remained unchanged. My parents had acknowledged their behavior was problematic but hadn't demonstrated a real commitment to change. Harry seemed more interested in avoiding blame than addressing his issues. In the weeks following the family meeting, my parents made a few attempts at reconciliation. My mother sent a text asking if we could have lunch. My father emailed an article about family dynamics with a note saying he was thinking about our conversation. Harry remained silent. I agreed to have lunch with my mother, setting clear boundaries about what I was and wasn't willing to discuss. During our meal, she seemed genuinely interested in hearing about my work and my life with Jeremy, topics that had previously been overshadowed by Harry's latest schemes. She revealed that my father had been researching therapists who specialized in family systems and adult children. According to her, they had realized that their approach to parenting had created unhealthy patterns that were affecting all of us. She said they were considering ways to encourage Harry to become more independent, starting with asking him to contribute to household expenses if he continued living with them. While these were positive steps, I remained cautious. Years of established behavior wouldn't change overnight, and I needed to see consistent action rather than just good intentions. Jeremy and I decided to book the honeymoon we had postponed, 2 weeks in Portugal, far from family drama and work stress. We needed time to focus on our relationship and process everything that had happened. The night before we left for our trip, I received an unexpected text from Harry. It was brief and awkward, but it was the first direct communication we'd had since the family meeting. He wrote that he was starting therapy the following week and had applied for a job at a local marketing firm. He ended with "have a good trip," which felt like an olive branch given our recent history. Update 3, 6 months later Jeremy and I returned from Portugal refreshed and with a new perspective. The distance from daily stresses and family drama gave us space to envision the life we wanted to build together. We came back determined to establish clear boundaries with my family while remaining open to positive changes. In the months since our return, those boundaries have been tested several times. My parents initially respected our space, limiting communication to occasional texts and short phone calls. But as time passed, their old patterns began to resurface in subtle ways. My mother started making comments about how we should visit more often because Harry missed us, despite Harry rarely initiating contact himself. My father suggested we consider moving closer to them as they weren't getting any younger and might need help, overlooking the fact that Harry still lived with them. These moments required consistent reinforcement of our boundaries. I made it clear that while we valued family relationships, our decisions would be based on what worked for our marriage and careers, not on family expectations or Harry's preferences. The most significant change has been in Harry's situation. The marketing job he mentioned in his text didn't work out. He quit after 3 weeks, claiming the environment wasn't creative enough for his talents. However, somewhat surprisingly, he did continue with therapy. According to my aunt, His therapist had been blunt about the ways his parents' enabling had contributed to his lack of independence. This reality check seemed to spark something in Harry. He found a part-time job at a local community college teaching photography classes and moved into a small apartment with a roommate. While he was still receiving some financial support from our parents, he was taking steps toward self-sufficiency that I hadn't seen before. My relationship with my parents has evolved into something I describe as cautiously cordial. We talk more frequently now, and they make more effort to ask about my work and my life with Jeremy. They accepted our invitation to dinner at our apartment last month, the first time they'd visited since we got married. The evening was somewhat stiff but peaceful, with everyone making an effort to stay on neutral topics. As for the family celebration of our marriage that my mother had suggested, we eventually agreed to a small dinner at a restaurant, with strict parameters. Jeremy and I selected the venue, the date, and the guest list. We made it clear that if anyone tried to make the event about Harry or bring up old grievances, we would leave immediately. The dinner was last weekend, and to my surprise, it went relatively smoothly. My parents gave a brief toast acknowledging our marriage and wishing us happiness. Harry brought a colleague from the community college as his date and managed to engage in normal conversation throughout the evening. There were a few awkward moments, particularly when distant relatives asked why they hadn't been invited to the wedding, but overall, it felt like progress. Jeremy and I have been discussing our future plans, including the possibility of buying a house next year. We've been looking at neighborhoods about an hour away from my parents, close enough for occasional visits but far enough to maintain our independence. We've also started talking about having children in the next few years, which has led to conversations about what kind of relationship we want our future kids to have with my parents and Harry. I've been clear with my parents that if we do have children, I won't allow the same patterns of favoritism that shaped my childhood. Any grandchildren will be treated equally, regardless of their personalities, interests, or perceived potential. My parents seemed taken aback by this directness but didn't argue, which I consider progress. Harry has been making efforts to rebuild our relationship, though progress is slow. He sent a housewarming gift when Jeremy and I moved to a larger apartment, a framed photograph he had taken of the beach near where we got engaged. It was a thoughtful gesture that acknowledged our relationship in a way he rarely had before. Last week, I met Harry for coffee without Jeremy or our parents present, the first time we'd done this in over a year. The conversation was somewhat stilted, but he mentioned that his therapist had encouraged him to take responsibility for his reactions rather than blaming others for his feelings. He acknowledged, in a roundabout way, that his behavior after my wedding had been inappropriate. It wasn't exactly an apology, but it was movement in the right direction. I'm not sure what the future holds for my family relationships. There are moments when old patterns emerge and I question whether real change is possible. But there are also glimmers of growth that give me hope. My parents are making efforts to treat me as an adult with my own life rather than as an extension of their family system. Harry is taking small steps toward independence and self-awareness. Meanwhile, Jeremy and I continue building our life together. We've established new traditions and connections that have nothing to do with my family history or dynamics. His parents have become important figures in my life, providing the kind of unconditional support I never experienced growing up. We've created a strong circle of friends who know and accept us as we are. The wedding that caused so much drama turned out to be a turning point in more ways than I expected. By refusing to postpone our plans for Harry's nebulous potential, we not only claimed our right to move forward with our lives but also disrupted unhealthy family patterns that had persisted for decades. The fallout was painful, but it forced conversations and changes that might never have happened otherwise. I still maintain firm boundaries with my family, and I probably always will. Some wounds don't fully heal, and some patterns are too deeply ingrained to completely disappear. But I've found a balance that works for now: limited contact on my terms, clear expectations, and immediate consequences for boundary violations. Jeremy and I celebrated our first anniversary last month with a weekend trip to the same coastal town where we had our mini honeymoon. Sitting on the beach watching the sunset, I reflected on everything that had happened since that dinner when my parents asked me to put my life on hold for Harry. Despite the drama and pain, I couldn't regret our decision. By choosing each other and our future together, we had set a precedent for all the decisions that would follow.